changing tide.
Standing tall.
Standing tall.
Or on my knees.
Or on my knees.
Earth and sky.
Earth and sky.
I am one with thee.
I am one with thee.
I am free.
I am free.
To see everything.
To see everything.
As a gift.
As a gift.
I give to me.
I give to me.
I see.
I see.
I am free.
I am free.
To be me.
To be me.
I see.
I see.
I am free.
I am free.
To be me. Sing with me.
To be me.
To be me.
Hello. How are you? I'm good, because I had fun this week. I had a bath this week. I want to tell you what I've done for the last 10 days, actually. I'm very excited to tell you where I've been because I was gone. I took a trip. I left early Saturday morning, September 30th, hopped on an airplane, and went to Detroit. So how many people say they've gone to Detroit and had fun? Okay, yeah. Well, I have a friend that lives on St. Clair Lake, which I've never seen. It's a heart-shaped lake, and it is stunning. So, she is a new minister, graduated with me last year. She has started the one and only brand new Centers for Spiritual Living of Detroit. So she's quite the angel of the organization right now. But it's really kind of fun. I went up to be with her, and I spoke in her center last Sunday. I was her first guest speaker, and that was a little blast. And then we hopped in a car, and we took a road trip to Asheville, North Carolina. In my mind, I'm thinking map-wise, was that possible? But because I feel so isolated sometimes out here. But we had a blast. I love road trips, and actually when I did my arrangements and flight stuff, it was actually cheaper to drive than to fly into Asheville. So it was really fun. But I want to say, she does a church in a box. We all know what that is. But she holds her center in a rec center, recreational center. And it's a 3-story building, and it's quite big. And it was interesting that there were all these other churches going on at the same time. And we all carried our stuff in together and carried it out together and down the hallways, and everybody smiled and even helped each other. And then they went into their respective rooms and did their own thing. And it was really fascinating to do that. So when the service was over, we got in our car and we drove to Asheville. And what was in Asheville was the yearly Centers for Spiritual Living Ministers Conference. And that's why I say I had a bath. I had a bath of science of mind for 4 days, Monday through Thursday. And I learned so much. We always do. But it's so wonderful to be in that space where all thoughts and all conversation are different levels and different variations of science of mind and religious science. And learned a lot to bring back to the practitioners, to the practitioner class, and even with some things to tell you today. So I want to tell you about a very interesting experience that I had while I was there. If some of you have looked at my Facebook page, I did a fire walk. Yeah. Woo! Ow! Woo! So, as ministers of science of mind and a whole lot of things, we love to do processing, right? I remember Reverend Donald used to call us process junkies. Processing and experiential exercises to practice what we learn and how it affects our lives. Well, how much more powerful can you get than walking on fire, for God's sake, right? So that's what we did for our little experiential. So with all the sharing that we did before and afterward, and Dr. Ken Gordon was there, the spiritual leader of the organization. He did a talk on Wednesday. I've gained a very interesting and deeper understanding of how we actually live this stuff in our lives without thinking about it, and how it shows up. And what the rules of life are actually become the same rules of doing a fire walk. So I'll tell you about that. Our teaching actually is quite simple. Some people go, "What?" But our teaching is simple. And maybe the basics of it might sound simple, but doing it is not simple. Doing it on a daily basis and doing the practice and keeping that stuff in your mind at all times without not letting all the other things creep in is hard work. But there are basic rules for that. If we don't keep the information in front of us all the time to do it, that's when the ego and the fear sometimes always finds a way to seep in a little hole or a little crevice, and then it kind of grabs you. We teach that there's one power that we are all part of, and that one power works through us, takes our mind and thought, and makes it into form. Some of us have a hard time believing that or seeing that, because sometimes what we see may not be what we want to see. But that really is what happens. I'm now reading a bunch of new books at one time, and reading some old books from my daily spiritual practice in the morning. And I am, every time you read this stuff over and over again, you get something different. But I'm starting to see such a crossover of information from different people, even people who are not in religious science or New Thought, and how their information crosses over into what we think and the way we say that our thought really affects our lives. So it all, kind of validates things from all different directions. We also say that there is an infinite capacity to create any and all things from this one source of life. And this is what we say is our basic rule of life through science of mind, religious science, and now what we would call centers for spiritual living. That's our basic point. And that's what most New Thought organizations teach as well. So Tuesday night, we learned the basic rules of a fire walk and how it really becomes the basic rules for life. So this is how the evening went. Reverend Dr. John Waterhouse, who is the field leader for Center for Spiritual Living, we had our event at his center. Beautiful. In the trees and the grass and the green and the water, it's just gorgeous up there. So that's where we were for the week. So he's our experienced teacher and guide. He does this a lot for a lot of different groups and people and the work that he does. So we gathered all of us together, and we started inside the building, and he started talking about what the firework is, and then he started talking about stories of different people who've done firewalks and were kind of afraid of it, and he started to say that it might be scary. And there were some of us, there were over 105 people in the room that night. Not everybody even showed up. They didn't want to even be near the area when it happened. But I have done a firewalk before. This was my second one. I did one up in Park City back in '95 when it was the thing to do. And it was amazing. I didn't get hurt at all. Nothing. Went back, got in line, ran through 2 more times. So there were people in the room who were petrified. They were so scared, but they felt so moved by the energy of what we were moving into. They were there and they were present. And that was really important. So Dr. John explained all the basic premises, what to do, and really, it's really an act of faith. It's an act of intention, following through your intentions, and most importantly, to know the truth of what we really believe, that there is one power that is greater than us and that we can use for the good of our lives, and it's a power that is whole, and that we're whole in that. And so that's the basic thing that we hold on to. He went on to inform us that people don't get hurt. Well, not everybody. People don't get hurt. And so, with his instructions, he told us, after we went through the fire, to not look at our feet. Don't check the bottom of your feet, because you would be looking for something, right? So don't check the bottom of your feet. Don't even check them in the morning if you don't. Well, don't check them. So, for most of us, that was kind of hard to do, because we're all curious, but that was our instruction. He said the biggest thing was when you walked on that fire, you were just to know that when you got to the other side, you were a fire walker, and you could do anything. That was the only thing you needed to know. And if you happen to have a little sensation on the bottom of your foot, just know you were kissed by the fire. Dr. Ken said, I've been kissed and I've been kissed. That was not a kiss. not one he'd experienced before. So anyway, you get kissed. And if you are kissed, maybe what you might want to do is go home and look at a reflexology map of the bottom of your foot. And if you feel like there's a little kiss, where is it according to the map? Maybe something in your body needs a little attention. And use it that way. Okay, I can do that. He shared the story of one fellow. It had been his very first time. And when he went through the firewalk, he had a couple little hot spots. He'd been kissed a couple of times on the bottom of his foot and ended up with what he determined was a big fat old blister. So he goes back to work the next week, and he's in a business meeting, and he starts talking all about this firework and this darn blister. And darn if he doesn't, in the meeting, take his shoe and sock off and say, "Look at my blister." 2 days later, everybody else in the meeting had a blister in the same spot. Seriously, the power of suggestion is strong. But the power of truth is strong too, right? So most of the people that I knew, that I spoke with, never looked at their feet, didn't even wash their feet. I had to wash my feet before I went to bed. They were dirty and black. So that's an interesting story. Power of suggestion is very strong. Okay, so we've had our little preliminary talk. We go out to the fire. Each person is handed a piece of wood, of cherry wood, because as it burns softly and there's no sharp edges. I said, "Thank you." So everybody has a piece of wood. So we go out to this area way out by their house. And because the house is on the same property with their church center out there. It's a big campus. So we go out, and there is a piece of ground that's kind of no grass on it. And I'd say that thing's about 12 feet long. Okay? And so he lines everybody up around it and says a few little things and stuff. And then we start to build the fire. And the purpose is that if you're going to walk through it, you're going to build it because it becomes a part of you. You become a part of the fire. Anybody here done a fire walk? 1, 2, 3, a couple. Oh, good. Yeah, okay. All right, so you know what I'm talking about. You become a part of this thing. So everybody, one by one, takes their wood, and you've kind of blessed it, and then he's got a particular pattern, how we set this thing up, and then there's a second layer, and then they put hay in between all the wood. And then 4 people were chosen to light the fire from the 4 different directions. Dr. John does a lot of work with Native American traditions and ceremonies. So we honored the 4 directions, and we light the fire from the 4 directions. Dr. John's wife, Reverend Barbara, comes out with this big container of this red stuff, and she goes, "Aha, the juice." So she pours this on the juice, and before they light the fire, obviously, that was the kerosene, and this thing goes up. This thing was hot, and this thing was big. I do have a picture of this, I think, on my page. And so you're looking at this thing that you can't stand next to, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm going to walk on that." Yes. So actually, you know, it was quite powerful. Okay, so we go out there, do all that, light it, and then we go back inside. And Dr. John takes us through a process, kind of a Native American kind of process. He described the 7 directions from his tradition as he learned it, with the colors and the meanings and the animals and things with it. And then we made little prayer bags. Everybody had the different colors of the different directions. We said prayers with tobacco, tied it up, and then we made a necklace of our prayers. And when we were done, we all marched out together to the fire, and we sang the Karen Drucker song, "Love," what was this called? "There is only love." Because love is the divine healer and the divine connection of everything. So we sang that as a group from the moment we left the activity room, really until the whole thing was done. And so that was our chant about love and wholeness in that song. So you had to take your shoes off before you went out before you got close to the fire. So we're all out there barefoot. And the fire had gone down. There had been the fire keepers out there, and they were raking it. So all these ashes are there, and the coals, and it was bright and shiny, fiery. It was fiery. Oh, and did I mention that everybody had to sign a release? There are those little things, right? You could not go out there until they had your paper and they counted everybody that you signed and released them from anything else that was going to happen. All right, so that's good. Okay, so now we're out there by the fire. And here's really the point that I really want to say. Here's the basic rules of the fire walk, but here's the basic rules of life. These are the laws of life. So we're all standing around the ashes, and they're hot, and they're red, and they're glowing and doing their things in their glory. And Dr. John starts to give his instructions. So he says, you guys, one by one, are going to start at the end of the fire down there. And I'm going to be at this end down here. And as you come across that fire, you're going to look at me. Only me. You're not going to look down. You're not going to look at the fire. You're going to only look at me. I'm the goal. And I'm going to be there with my arms open. And when you come to the end and you have succeeded, I am going to embrace you, and I'm going to hold you, and I'm going to love you. And I'm going to tell you that you are a fire walker, and you can do anything. Yeah. Oh, that always surprises me. So this was really powerful. How many times in your life have you set a goal and it seemed impossible? It seemed that what stood or what ended up in the middle, in between you and your goal, felt like hot coals. It felt impossible to do. Everybody's had that feeling at least once. Yeah? Okay. So, he was he was dressed in white, which actually kind of was the other thing about that made it was kind of interesting. I guess that was his ceremonial garb, but he was dressed in white and had some things on. And there he was in his presence, and he's not a small presence if you've seen him, but he is the biggest teddy bear, and he stood there with his arms open and embraced everyone as they came across. So the first thing was really to see what you're doing, where you're going, what's your goal, and keep your eye on the goal. Keep your eye on the ball, as that thing says. Keep your eye on the goal. Okay, so what could possibly distract you? Well, I have to say, it was a lot easier to look at Dr. John than it was to look at the fire, but we get curious, and you're like, and you want to kind of see that down there. It kind of pulls your attention. You want to get to that goal, get to that thing that you've stated and started, and you want it so bad. And there's these things that just attract you, and you can't help but look at it, right? It just pulls you. So it's time to take that first step, and you're really stepping in faith. You know where you're going, you know what the instructions are, but it's a really firm knowing of truth and faith when you're going to put your bare foot right on that thing that for all of your life has told you, I hurt you, right? And you're going to say, uh-oh. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to get there. You don't want to okay, I'm here. Eyes up. And you go, and what you don't want to have happen is do I want to think about this? It doesn't work to go back and change your mind. You set your mind, and you got to go. So Dr. Ken described this. He taught in his talk afterwards. He described this as that you have to surrender, for him, all intellectual property, basically about and thought about what you know about fire and what it can do. And it is surrendering. And surrendering is a tricky word that I've learned with different people for different things. It has a whole different meaning depending on your past. But you have no choice that if you want to do this, you're going to surrender what you know about fire and maybe what you know even about our bodies, right? So that's the first thing. And this matches life in a lot of ways. We set our goal. It's calling to us. It seems impossible, but you're going to go because it's calling you strongly. And something really has to happen inside you viscerally for this. Sometimes we stand on the edge of a thought, a creative idea, just on that verge. And you want to go so bad, but you get scared. And so that's when everything that we teach and everything that we know comes forward. And that's what it has to be, the thing that's in your mind to keep you going. Because there's that part of you that wants to step in, that stuff that's back here, and it comes around to the front and it goes, you are stupid. This is a stupid choice. This is silly. What you want to do, shouldn't be happening. So that's where you have to say, no, I have faith in this. I have faith in what I've been taught. I have faith in what I know. I have faith in what I've learned about the power of myself and the power that lives and breathes through me and lets me know where I'm going. So the choice is not dangerous. It may seem that way, but the choice is not always dangerous. On the other side, at the end of the journey, is that thing that waits for you, and it welcomes you with open arms, it embraces you, and it congratulates you. Yeah. First thing to do is to prepare and to know that where you want to go, you have to know where you want to go. You have to know that getting there is really the truth about you and brings up the truth about you. And when you know exactly why you want to do it, that really is the foundation of why we do anything. So the fire can represent the fire of life. And as we move towards our goal, which is the thing that embraces us when we succeed and get to that thing we want so badly, sometimes in the middle of it, we find that we're just distracted. Like I said, we get distracted by the heat. We get distracted by the coals and the glittery and the stuff that wants to pull us away. But you stand there and you do it, because what's on the other side becomes more important. And what really is it that distracted us? We're distracted because our why, the big why, is not strong enough. It hasn't been set. It hasn't been clear. Our reasons for why we do things, even our values, may not have been defined enough inside of us. Each person has an individual truth about themselves and for themselves. And it's this individual truth that helps us define our values and what's really important to us in our lives. And so when we find that for ourselves, when they're clear, we move ahead. When our values are not clear, that's when we get distracted. The first group of people that approached the fire, and I was one of them, stood there for a moment and then marched across. I didn't give it a second thought. Well, I lied. I gave it a second thought. I wanted to get it over with because I had done it before. I thought, not a big deal. I can do this. Well, after this kind of first crowd went through, there was a second crowd. Something happened. Something kind of shifted. And as people began to approach the fire, they started shouting. Things had already started to move and come up for them. They were shouting about things they were ready to let go of, shouting things they were ready to claim for their life going forward, shouting things they were going to be healed as they walked across that fire. And it was powerful. I was part of the first group that I didn't shout anything. I just wanted to get across the fire. And I learned a big lesson, and it was powerful. I was not free. I was not open when I approached the fire. I was actually in judgment and comparison about how I had been prepared for the first fire walk. And what happens when you are in judgment and when you are in comparison, they actually are a nice combination of fear and doubt. And I realized that as I took that first step, I was in fear and doubt. And I started to like backpedal a little bit and say even stronger little affirmations, but that was too late. And the fire spoke to me, and it said, if you're in doubt and fear, then I have no choice to give you what you think of this situation. I was kissed in many places on both of my feet, and it really surprised me because I did not expect it. Surrender can be a very spiritual thing and a very powerful thing, and it sometimes can be the most healing and bravest thing you can do when you're trying something new like this. I did not surrender my past or my thoughts about my previous experience. I was not open to a new experience, and I didn't even realize it was going on. How many times have you been engaged in something new, and there's this reaction that comes out of you, a behavior or a word that you never expected to do or to say, and then afterwards you realize, wow, that's from back there. Yeah, I didn't realize I was doing that. So stepping onto the fire is stepping out in faith, and the appreciation that when I let go and surrender my linear mind and what I think things are supposed to be about, when I let go of doubt and judgment and even the comparison and the expectations, the opinions, the intellect, all of that, then I get to my goal. I get to that thing that's greater than me, and it picks me up and brings me through the fire. You're not lost. You're not destroyed. You're not even burned. You are pulled towards your goal, towards the love, and towards that embrace that says congratulations. And that's how it was for almost everybody there. The key is learning to surrender to that higher power. That is what we teach. The key is also defining what you want, what is your value, what you hold so dearly to you, and it's your values that pull you across the fire of our lives. Dr. Ken said it really good when he said you have to align your life with your values. They have to match. And you let your values determine your opinions. You do not let your opinions determine your values. Right? Values determine opinions. It's not the other way around. Our topic this week and the talk title that was listed was Undefended Love. But I was so excited to tell you about the firework because of the meaning that it had. So many things came up. But I actually found that there was a connection. Undefended Love and the book that was referenced for it is really about being in relationship and developing a deeper relationship instead of how we face conflicts continuously in relationships. How do we do it differently? Mary Morrissey describes undefended love as being in a relationship that nourishes and sustains us and our partner. It calls us to the courage and compassion needed to to share yourself fearlessly with another person. That in itself can be a scary thing, because I know people who would rather walk on fire than be open to someone else and share themselves, right? So finding that place within you is about understanding that love comes from within first. Marcy Shimoff is the author of Love for No Reason. Fabulous book. Lots of little exercises and things to do to find that love and let go of blocks of love. And in it she says, when you experience love for no reason, you no longer need to look outside yourself to get love. Instead of being a love beggar, you become a love philanthropist. Isn't that cool? And I found a lot of other readings that, cross-referenced with this. In The Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore, who started the Unity Church, he defines divine love as the pure essence of being that binds together the whole human family. In divine mind, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it. It is the great harmonizing truth. It is impersonal. It loves for the sake of loving. It, like the sun loves joy, is the shining forth of its nature. It just loves for the sake of loving. Doesn't that feel good? Not asking for anything back. Love is the inner quality that sees good everywhere in everybody. It insists that all is good, and by refusing to see anything else but good, it raises that up in itself and raises that up into everything else that it loves. It is the harmonizer and the healer. Love is the fulfillment of the law. Yeah. So what is undefended love? So often we're defending our hearts, and we are defending our love. We are not surrendering our fears and doubts and the walls that we put up to keep us from relationship. We have to be open, and we have to be willing to move through the walls and the barriers that we've created. And can you do something so profound and even scary to help some of that stuff break up and move away and move past all that? You actually can. Maybe you can walk on fire to do it. How about loving ourselves so much that we are willing to do the scariest thing you could think of? And when you do that, it brings divine love to the surface. It waits patiently for us. It just is always there, and it's just waiting for us to acknowledge that it's there and to let it come forward. Tuesday night, people claimed their love. They shouted at the top of their lungs what they wanted to release, what they were ready to do with their lives. Then they were hugged and given all the gratitude for it, for their successes in that. When everybody had finished walking on the fire, we'd gone back inside. There was one person that didn't want to. She got to the edge of the fire and said no. But when that happens, that's really okay, because she held other people's emotions and fears, and she actually only needed to go that far and didn't need to do the walk. And she knew that about herself. But everybody else, we went inside, all of us went inside, and people started to share, and they couldn't hold back. They found places within themselves they hadn't seen for a long time, or hadn't felt for a long time, that they really wanted to talk about, because it opened them up. And when you do something you don't think you can do that scares the crap out of you, you talk about it. So it was good. So there are some particular things I've mentioned. I mentioned the rule of life. Know where you're going, prepare, and look ahead. Values. What is true for you? Let your values create your opinions, not your opinions create your values. Surrendering. Let go of how we think things should be based on something from the past, or any information that doesn't matter in the moment. And love. Know the truth that you are made of divine love, and let love live as you and through you. So here's the last thing I want to mention. Each of these items is also connected to our process of manifesting and attracting our new minister. In our easy prayer, you've seen this a couple times, right? The easy prayer of our covenant that everyone was asked to read for 30 days, or even longer. Read it until the new minister comes through the door. This covenant is based on divine love. Love fulfills the law. So I'm going to read it out loud, but it's time for prayer, so I invite our practitioners to come forward. So I'm going to read this as the prayer. And I'm going to ask our practitioners to hold the space as they always do, so lovingly and beautifully. And as I read this, close your eyes, and this will be your prayer too. There is that saying that my prayer is your prayer too. Thank you. Okay, close your eyes. Okay, go ahead. There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. In knowing that I am one with this life that is God, I therefore know that I am one with all its blessed expressions, which includes the presence of a new minister for my beloved spiritual community. Because I know that the highest purpose of my new minister is to glorify God, I therefore know that my new minister is a revelation of God as love. I further know that my new minister is the fulfillment of that which has been promised by God, for it is written, love points the way, the law makes the way possible. Love is harmonious, vital, and complete. As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed before me as living and celebrating the power of love. I now intend to experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself. For I am centered in spirit, grounded in principle, and an authentic, engaging, inspiring communicator. I am awakened to and inspired by the wisdom within me. I am compassionately applying principles, revealing wholeness. I am fully embodying spirit as source and live principle generously. I am experiencing a direct connection with the divine and revealing its relevance in the world today through mystical teachings. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know that it is revealed in a way that glorifies God and serves the highest and greatest good of all who are touched by their presence. I am grateful. God is gracious. And I know absolutely right in this moment that as I read these words, every word, every expression, every I am is the I am of each individual in this room. For it is the center heart of love, that deep, expansive, divine love of the universe is that which calls in this new minister to be the presence of healing, to be the presence of that divine love expression. And knowing this, I am so grateful that God is gracious. And I release this word into the law, into the mechanics, into that creative process that is ever expanding and always working. And I know that it is so. And together we say, and so it is.